Well, hello, everybody. This is Steve, and I would really like to thank those of you who are attending this webinar, both now live and later when you might be looking at this online. As usual, when people are willing to listen to what we say, we don't take that for granted. We're honored by it, and we really hope that this time is valuable to us. We put in the effort because we know how valuable your time is. I'll ask you now, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we will answer that at the end. But without further ado, we are going to start our webinar on the secret to the hearing aid business. And for those of you, I think everybody probably knows most of us, but I'll tell you, my name is Steve Richards, and I had a 40-year career on the wholesale side of the hearing aid business. And when I retired, I started hanging out with some folks who had a lot of experience on the retail side. And it's turned into a really fun opportunity for me to go back to, a bunch of my old customers and help them focus on the retail side of the hearing aid business. It's turned out that that I've learned it's harder than I ever thought it was. And so I owe some of you an apology, as I get this education slowly but surely over time. So I'm joined today by Phil Comfort and Randy Schomborn, um, two of the most knowledgeable retailers on the planet, and people that I hold in very high regard. And so I'd like to start and have these guys tell you who they are briefly before we get started, and how they wound up on this webinar today. And you're going to see me leave this camera because I haven't plugged my laptop in, and I'm about to lose all of you if I don't plug it in. So, uh, Phil, Randy, why don't you introduce who you are, and don't stop until you see my face again.
Well, I'm Phil. Thanks for having me today. Um, I've been in this industry in some role since 2004. Began as a second generation, joined my dad's small little mom and pop in Pennsylvania. Over the next 10 years, we grew that business, ultimately sold it to Starkey in 2015. I went to work for Starkey as a regional director in their first as a regional manager in the Northeast, where I supervised 50 clinics. And then I moved into the regional director role, covering Texas and Colorado and New Mexico. I was there for about 5 years. And my most recent move has been moving out of management and back into the practice of better hearing. So right now I'm in Florida working with some Acuity owned clinics and refreshing my clinical skills. I realized after 10 years of teaching people how to do this, that doing it's actually harder. So I thought it time for me to get back on the ground and make sure that I was able to practice what I preached. So I've known Randy and Acuity for most of that period. And I'd say I've been a fellow warrior trying to win this battle of better hearing with Randy. That's who I am.
Yeah, I'm Randy Schomborn. I've been in the business hearing aid world for about 42 years, a little over, and had a 20-year career with Starkey, and then moved into the retail world in 2001. Built up a retail organization for about 15 years, and Starkey came to me and wanted me to help them run their retail organization at the time, All American. And so I sold my business to Starkey and worked with them at All American for about 3 years, and then took a year off and I joined up with my good friend and partner Cade Simpson and Sarah Richhart, and we started up Acuity Hearing Network in And so we've been at it for about 5 years now, and been a lot of fun.
Well, I thank you both for being here. It's been fun to really work closer. You know, Randy's a mentor of mine, and Phil and I, we go back an awfully long way and have worked together. And you know, he's been my customer, and Randy's been my boss, and then he was my customer, and it's just really fun getting to work side by side, trying to achieve the same goals together. So I really appreciate y'all giving us the time. I'd like to start. We could really end this webinar early and everybody could go to lunch, Randy. If just real quickly, you said, if you answered, what's the secret to the hearing aid business?
Well, I like to say, I like to say that the secret to the hearing aid business is really a rhetorical question. And it deserves contemplation and meditation. Here's the question. When someone comes into your office to purchase some batteries, what are you going to do? What will you do when they come in for really any agenda is what the question is asking. And the assumption is that when a patient comes into your office, they will have an agenda. You know, typically they want you to pay attention to their existing hearing aids, or maybe they want to buy batteries. Sometimes, you know, a small percentage of the time they're coming in kind of sort of thinking about buying hearing aids. Regardless of what their agenda is, the secret of the hearing aid business is really how will you change their agenda to be thinking about their best hearing. In other words, it turns out our agenda is typically better than theirs. Our agenda is how can we get the best hearing for you, when their agenda might be, hey, will you clean my hearing aid? And so, yeah, the secret is what will you do when they come in with their agenda? The answer is you're going to change their agenda. And what we want to change their agenda to be is about better hearing.
I think, you know, you see that I put up on the screen here, we've actually diagrammed this out. And I would say, you know, to everybody watching that here's the goal of Acuity. It's not to teach people who know how to sell hearing aids how to sell hearing aids. That's not it. What we're trying to do is we're trying to teach people how to scale their business so that other people who come in provide the level of support that makes you proud as a business owner. It's that whole thing of how do you get people to provide the same level of care that you do? Well, you really need to have an actual documented process that you can teach and train to, because you're not going to find somebody who cares about your business like you do and treats patients the way you do. A lot of people who start their own business, this is all just intuitive to them. We're trying to take the guesswork out of it and create a treasure map that is duplicatable, scalable, and teachable to everybody in our organization, so that we can achieve the best results possible for our business and for our patients. I think that is probably unique to this and other conversations. Keep going, Randy.
Yeah, you're making a good point. I mean, you know, I think it's common that a business owner just thinks that they'll hire a clinician, and it's just intuitive that the clinician is going to, I'm going to say, see the potential and create the opportunity.
Mhm.
That it's intuitive that the clinician is going to drive the patient towards the agenda of better hearing. In my experiences, it's simply not intuitive. That what's needed so often is this process that you teach your clinician to walk through. Think of it as a checklist that helps them get to casually succeeding and ultimately making a recommendation to your patients making a recommendation that says, this is what I would do. This is what we should do. What do you think we should do in terms of moving you towards, new treatment plan, for example. So it's not intuitive. And what helps you get to success is to have a process. This diagram here is somewhat, in a simple way, talking about a process where you're first and foremost, you're looking in everyone's ear every time. We've said it like this: the blocking and tackling of the hearing aid business is no one comes into your office by what you don't look in their ear, and pray for wax, by the way. And no one leaves your office by what you don't set a next appointment. Those are kind of the framing steps of your service visit process. And we are largely talking about a service visit, by the way, which constitutes, somewhere around 90% of every office, every clinic is mostly service visits. And so this diagram here that you're showing, Steve, is kind of a walkthrough as to how, or a checklist, if you will, as to how you treat every service visit.
Can I ask you, Randy, you kind of jokingly said, and those of us that work together with you, we know exactly what you mean. But when you say pray for wax, what does that mean?
Well, part of what we're doing anytime someone comes in our office is we're rebranding, or we're branding ourselves.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is develop differentiating activities that keeps the patient coming back to us. Every visit they come, we want to frame this buying criteria to be about better hearing, not the hearing aid. And there's not a better way that I've ever seen or found where Cerumen management begins to build that trust and begins to provide the value that the patient needs. First of all, most people in this business shy away from Cerumen management. They don't do it. They don't want to do it. They're not determined to get good at it. And so one of the things that we've found to differentiate ourselves from the competition is to become really good at cleaning wax. And we have found that by far the best way to go about doing that is to utilize videotoscopy, use two-handed Cerumen management, where you're looking at the monitor and removing the wax with a two-handed approach. And what you're doing really is we like to say, removing the thorn from the paw of the lion. You're building trust immediately, and there's nothing that builds trust better than Cerumen management. Sounds simple, doesn't sound profound, but it is so key in really earning the trust of the patient and starting the process, the overall process of hopefully getting to a recommendation for new treatment plans on a more consistent basis.
That's cool. Thanks. I want to reiterate yet again the necessity of having a scalable, teachable process in place, because if you think about kind of the quarterback of this at the beginning, when somebody comes in to buy batteries, or comes in for a cleaner check, or comes in for a troubleshoot, our PCC is usually the first point of contact. And most of our PCCs, and I know this because it's what we look for people who like to please people and make them happy. These are people pleasers. And so they might be inclined, when somebody comes in to buy batteries, to just get them their batteries as quick as possible and pat themselves on the back for taking care of that patient's needs quickly and responsibly. And this checklist is wait, no, let's slow down, because in our case, batteries are not the agenda. Better hearing's the agenda. And we want that patient to have an experience every time that they come into our office. And so if you look at your PCCs, they can run the risk of thinking that their job is just to answer the question that the patient asked when they called in. No, that's not what it is. Their job is to find out if that patient's hearing as best they can and start moving that conversation forward. And then we
one of the
like
things
to,
that you're,
yeah,
yeah, we're saying that this is not an intuitive thing. This idea of seeing potential in every patient visit and then creating opportunity. And one of the things that we have found over the years is to confirm that this is true is to begin to measure your overall conversion rates. And when we think about measuring conversion rates, we want it to be as objective as possible. My observation over the years and looking at how people measure their conversion rate, it's many times, if not most of the time, very subjective. In other words, they're being selective as to their denominator. And what I mean by that is they're kind of filtering out the opportunities weighed against the transactions. So maybe they filter out if somebody doesn't have enough money, or if somebody needed a doctor referral, or if they didn't have much of a hearing loss. Those are commonly filtered out. Or
third party.
They'll add in service visits that they created a sale off of and kind of pad their opportunities, if you will, or their denominator, because we're talking about a ratio here. And so what we like to do is be very objective, and probably the most objective way to measure your conversion rate is just take every patient visit. That's what we're doing here in the far left-hand corner. The total line there you see is 581. That's just the total amount of patient visits. And then the total amount of transactions being 38, giving you a total conversion rate of 6.5%, which, by the way, relatively speaking in the industry, if you have a 6 percentage point in front of your total conversion rate, that is outstanding. That's really good. Most of the time, I'd say the average conversion rate is got a 4 in front of it. In other words, 100 patient visits, the average clinic is going to create 4 hearing aid transactions out of that. So maybe 8, as much as 8 units, if you will. And so that's a very objective way to measure your conversion rate. What we like to do on the right-hand side of this workflow report is our service visit conversion rate. So if you follow over from the bottom line there and find the number 511 of the total appointments here, we've 511 of them are service visits. In other words, they're not new patient or new consultations, and we've got 18 transactions there. So total conversion rate for service visits of 3.5%. A lot of times when we run this report for the first time for an owner, those sound shocking to them. It's like, no way, I've got much higher conversion rate than that. And I will tell you, if you're running at 3% on a service visit conversion rate, that's really good. I mean, again, many times what we see is something with a 1% in front of it. And so my point being, this is not intuitive. It's not intuitive to go be creating opportunities, particularly inside service visits. And so maybe one of the first steps to do, and we at Acuity would be happy to do it for you, is to just run a conversion, a workflow report such as this, just to see how well are you doing converting service visits.
I'm going to go ahead and invite the notoriously silent Phil Comfort to join in the conversation as we bring up this slide. So I'll kind of explain it this way. These tools were were developed by Randy and by Kate and by Sarah and by people like Jim Wilson and Ray Jones back in the day. I mean, there's been a lot of Bill Austin has had a hand in, in some of this, if not actually doing it, but kind of guiding and teaching the thought process of the business that we're in. And Randy and Cade, they've been excellent operationally, but along the way, they've kind of gathered disciples, and Phil is an example of a disciple that they've gathered along the way, where he's starting to, I'll say, outshine the masters. The student has progressed beyond and kind of taken it a next step of actually being in a clinic. And this is something that's unique. I was talking to somebody yesterday. This is unique to Acuity, I think. We're not just recommending tools for you. These are tools that we use in our own clinics, in which we have dozens of employees, and we sell thousands of hearing aids a year. And this is our platform. And we're not just saying you should try this because we think it will work. We're saying this is how we do it. And this has been since Randy went on his own in 2019, 2000, 2001. This is 25 years in the making in terms of actually documenting and warehousing and having these tools available. We like to focus. We think active customers are the lifeblood of our business, and I'd like to invite Phil to start injecting more of the day-to-day how we think about these things. Welcome
Steve,
aboard, Phil. Yeah.
Steve, I'd like to say one thing about Phil. I've been around a lot of leaders, a lot of managers, clinic, owners, in terms of someone being able to come into an office and use these scalable tools and put them to work and lead people. And I've never seen anybody as good as Phil. I can just cite example after example where he's come in and he just knows how to implement and execute on this stuff. And it's so fun to have Phil on our team.
All right. We all love Phil. We get that. Phil, why don't you show us why we think you're so brilliant?
Randy, could you repeat that?
Record it for your wife.
That's right. Well, I can't see the screen, Steve. What are you displaying there?
Oh, you can't see the screen?
No, it's too small for me.
Oh, the active customer report. So we've got previous active customers of 4628. We got inflow percentage, outflow percentage, recaptured, current active customers, and net growth.
Yeah.
We're talking about measurements.
I did have a few thoughts as Randy was talking about the workflow report and measuring our service effectiveness versus our new sales effectiveness. It is counterintuitive. I think it's fair to say that kind of the mindset of our industry, at least my experience, has been that if you're going to get good at anything, get good at closing new deals. That new patient coming through the door tends to get a lot of airtime. And what I've learned is actually, if you want to get really good and see growth every year, it actually lives in your current customer processes. And by measuring them and separating them, it allows us to start exploring how we behave in those two segments. The plays that we run, the words that we use, the procedures that we put patients through are all intentional. They're all designed to lead the patient to better hearing. But it is different if you're dealing with a patient that you've never met before. And in that appointment, I like the way Randy talks about it. It's important that we're influential in that appointment. Once they move into better hearing, now we've got them for the rest of their life. We spend the rest of their life educating them about the value of better hearing. And so it's just interesting when you segment those out and then just follow the logic. It allows you to develop service protocols that are very different than a new patient appointment.
we like to measure active customers. We determine an active customer as somebody who owns hearing aids. They didn't have to buy them from us, but they own hearing aids and they've been into our office in the previous year. And so we run this report because, like in anything, if it's a relationship or a business, it's either growing or it's dying. And so we need to measure this and make sure that we keep our patients to ourselves and that we are tending to our garden. So we add people with acquisition marketing, and we take care of people by setting a future appointment every time they come in. We're going to lose customers because they're going to pass away. That's the nature of our business. But what we really want to prevent is allowing patients to just fall out of love with us or forget about us or go somewhere else. And so we generate this report. And I'll tell you another thing, we don't generate any reports that we don't have actionable procedures in place for you to follow to go make these numbers improve. In this case, we would have an active patient report, and we provide it to you, and we tell you, and here are the patients that are about to go a year past their last visit, and we're going to be losing them, and give these phone numbers to your PCCs. Let's go rescue these patients. Patients are the lifeblood of what we do. I know everybody says that, but we believe that a healthy, mature business probably should have around 60% of their revenue coming from previous patients. Now, Randy, this is another report. I'll invite both you and Phil. If you can see this, it's not a whole lot easier than the last one. But what are we looking at here, fellas?
Well, I don't know. Can you see this slide, Phil, or no?
Yeah, and it's the buckets. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where we're segmenting out your database. In this particular case, you've got 36,000 folks in your overall database. This is probably a compilation of several clinics, no doubt. And the point here being, if we want to keep our patients active, and you might back up one slide, Steve.
Yeah, for sure.
The whole kind of point is you can't hardly talk to a business owner. We're all like this. We think we're doing a good job for a customer. I like objective measurements. So let's just go find out, are we losing customers or are we not losing customers? And for us at Acuity, it's the number one goal that we have. It's our big BHAG. We want to accumulate active customers over the course of time. And the starting point, like Phil is saying, is we don't want to lose any. So in this particular case, we've got over this period of time, we've lost 10 people. You can see that four columns over, and we've gained 30, but we've lost 10. And we want to go recapture some of those that we've lost, or if not all of them. And so having an objective report that comes out to you, we send this out once a week to our clinics that shows, are we gaining, are we losing? The next slide is breaking down your overall database. And one of the reasons why we do this is we want to be able to market to our database, and we want to send out, say, relevant messages to wherever our customers are in their patient journey. And so without going into too much detail here, in the customer world, we call them buckets 7 through 12. We want to activate our customers, those folks that we have in our database that we know are wearing hearing aids. We want to keep them coming back to us, and we do that through a steady diet of direct mail and email campaigning.
Phil, do you have anything to add on this list?
I'd just say, having evaluated and managed now hundreds of different clinics, when I'm going in to first kind of take a triage of how it's going, this is the first place I look, is how many customers do you have? How many people have committed to doing business with you in the future? And is it more or less than you had last year? And I think sometimes we trick ourselves and we ask we answer the question of growth. Are we growing? And we look at our revenue line or our payments line.
Yeah.
And it kind of tricks ourselves, because the truth is, how you monetize your relationships with your patients, you may become better at, and now your revenue grows. But if you have fewer people than you did last year, your business actually shrank. The true asset of the business is the number of human beings who are committed to doing business with you in the future. And so, I think as we all try to get better and better at processes to convert people into better hearing, if you're leaking, if the number of people is shrinking in net, you got to start there. We got to plug that hole. And the way that the segmentation works here gives us access to our remarketing efforts, which is just a machine that's always working in the background. And we're communicating with each of these segments on a very intentional basis with a message that's crafted based on where they are in the journey, whether it's a brand new patient we've never met before, but we happen to have their information, or if it's somebody who has brand new hearing aids. Those are two different messages. Somebody who's got hearing aids that are 4 or 5 years old, that's a different message. And I think one of our strengths, and one of the things that is supporting our growth, it's kind of a fundamental pillar, is that remarketing effort. We got to keep our people active. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter how good you are. If you're shrinking, you're just in a slow process of going out of business. But if you're gaining customers, then you're in the process of winning the market.
So we've talked a lot about, well, at the beginning, it's, a couple of different processes. And this is, maybe it's an eye chart, maybe it's something we'll talk about everything, but we have, so if you can think of everything in the sales process, new patient and current patient pathway, we have training videos, we have documents to support, we have price lists, we have, we tell people there are 9 steps in the sales process. What step are you on? And we analyze what steps they need help with, or maybe they tell us, and we develop materials and help them get better at each step. And really, it's not to drive more sales, it's to drive better patient outcomes. And sales are a byproduct of that. So Phil, this is really we've got the morning huddle up here. We've got a complete care check, service fee schedule, hearing health report, current patient, and then hidden reports. And this is really just meant to show you that there are a lot of things to introduce to a practice. And Phil, I just assume that we do all of this on the first day we interact with these people. Is that how it works?
Yeah. No, it's hard. I mean, it's a system of processes that all work together, and everything matters. Everything is connected. I'm just thinking of the question, how do you begin to roll this stuff out? And if I could take a step up, philosophically, what are we trying to do with our service protocols? I call it my clinical imperative, is that every patient who leaves my clinic today is either hearing as well as they can hear, or they've made an educated decision not to. And I believe if we could just achieve that, if we could check that box on every patient, they're hearing as good as I know how to make them hear, or they're not, but they know it and they've made an educated decision, I think we win the game. I mean, in a nutshell. And so all of our systems and processes are built around that moment in time. And as I'm coaching teams, I like to start with the concept that, what if this was free? What we're trying to do here is we're trying to get to a moment of truth with the patient. But we just need to tell the patient the truth, that I can help you hear better, and I want to. And we kind of trick ourselves sometimes. And we put some filters into our decision making about whether or not we should speak the truth to the patient. The truth being, I can help you hear better than you are today. And, here's just some examples of that is, well, maybe their insurance hasn't renewed. Maybe their hearing aids are only 2 years old. Yeah, I could definitely help them hear better, but I don't want to tell them they got to spend more money only 2 years after they bought them. Here's a big one. Cycle or counselor is telling me this is a complete care check. It's just a quick clean and check. So I better not recommend new hearing aids. And really all these are barriers we've put up for ourselves to avoid the uncomfortable discussion with a patient. I think it's common for a clinician to view that moment in time when you're recommending treatment to a patient as delivering bad news. Well, it's actually not bad news, but we feel that way because we're facing the possibility of rejection, and there's all sorts of psychology around that. So what are we trying to do here is we're trying to put in place checklist-driven processes that protect us from those biases. And I like to imagine an alternate reality. Let's all imagine that we work in a clinic where hearing aids are literally free, and you have them on site. You've got an engineer there that can build any molds or custom devices you want. There's no limitations. You can do whatever you want. Your first patient comes in, and what are you going to do? Well, you're going to fit them with the best solution humanly possible because it's free. All right, let's compare the words we use in that world, our behaviors in that world. And the only thing I'm going to change is they're not free. There is a monetary need there. Do we change our behaviors in that moment? Do we change the words we use? Are we afraid to tell the patient the truth in the moment? And I'd say that's kind of the chief stuck that we're trying to overcome in the minds of a clinic team, is to just be comfortable speaking the truth. If the patient can hear better, tell them that, prove it to them. And all of our systems and processes are built around that concept of removing these biases that we have to speaking the truth to a patient.
I like the phrase that there is freedom in routine. And what I like about that is if we're following guidelines as a clinician, employees, they want to know what good looks like. And so if you actually provide them with a process, and if they follow that process, we will tell them, we're going to work with you. You're going to get good at this process. And if it doesn't bear fruit, it's the process's fault. This is what good looks like. Good looks like you understanding not to go and do these complete care checks this way, but for you to have a deeper understanding of why we're doing a complete care check. Why are we doing a VOSU at every patient visit? It's not just to knock it off, that you have this checklist so that you learn you're providing this care because it helps drive the agenda of better hearing. And I think when you come from it, from that aspect, how do you see clinicians receiving this kind of direction, Phil, in the beginning versus maybe later?
Well, it's in the beginning, it's often challenging for them. I'm speaking as a clinician, and most of us think we're pretty near the best that's ever been. And we're not. What I've learned is when you nudge them enough and they start following the process, it becomes a relief.
Yeah.
This is a hard job. Being a clinician is a hard job. You're really facing rejection most of the time. You're having to engage at a very deep level with patients, one after the other. And you get out of a tough appointment and you got to put your mask back on and you got to go see the next one. And that may be a tough appointment too. And so it helps me, it guides me through the day where I don't have to think about what to do next because I've got it written down in front of me. And so that structure is a relief to a clinician once they've kind of habitualized it.
Can you walk me through? Let's talk about a couple of the actual forms on this slide. Tell me the thinking of having this complete care check guideline. This is for a service patient visit. It's actually a complete care check, which is just a checkup on how well they're doing. Walk me through that, Phil, or I say walk everybody through this, please.
Sure. One of the purposes of the complete care check is to frame the appointment around better hearing. I think we can all imagine a clinician taking a patient back. What are the first words out of your mouth? Well, the first words are usually, how are your hearing aids working? And we tend to focus on the hearing aid. And so at the very beginning of every appointment, we literally say the words, are you hearing as well as you should be? And that's awkward at first. Clinicians find that very awkward. It's kind of a weird question. But what we found is what you're doing in that moment is you're actually aligning your priorities with the patient's priorities. The patients want to hear better. They're not as focused on the device as we are. And so we ask, are you hearing as well as you should be? And then we go into investigation mode. And we try to make our complete cares just as special, just as thorough as a new patient hearing evaluation. And we do that month after month, year after year. And in doing so over time, we're framing the buying criteria to be about better hearing. The patient doesn't think we're interested in selling hearing aids to them because we haven't talked about that for 3 years. We've just, delivered a high level, thorough, careful work every time they come into the clinic. And that is truly differentiating.
Randy, can you walk us through the thought process, just kind of dive into the service fee sheet, which is the one right there in the middle. Why do we use this?
Well, Phil was just using the language framing the buying criteria. This is an outtake form, if you will. We like to say when you end any appointment, you want to either end it with a sales agreement or you want to end it with a I didn't sell a new patient, so I want to test not treat form that I want to fill out, or I've delivered a hearing aid, so I want to have an outcome form, a delivery checklist. So those are 3 of the 4. The most prevalent one we want to end every appointment with is this service fee sheet, because again, 90%, give or take, of your visits are service visits. And so what did you do? What procedures did you go through in this service visit? And I want to kind of show my work. I want to show my work to the patient. This is what we've done. We looked in your ear, we did otoscopy, we did cerumen management, we cleaned and checked, a thorough cleaning and checking of your hearing aids. Hopefully maybe I moved towards a hearing test. All of these are itemized procedures that I want to accomplish throughout the patient's journey, if not that particular visit. And this idea came to us, I'm going to say years ago. I'm reminded of the time when Steve Richards comes to me. He's at Starkey. He's running Starkey sales, and it was the day that Starkey had to start charging for their hear clears. And
bad day.
You might notice on the service fee schedule, we've got hear clears and batteries on there. It's like everything that you possibly are providing value, battery doors, whatever. For years and years and years, we would take this stuff for granted. Like we would just replace battery doors like it was nothing and not charge the patient. And commonly the patient would walk out of our office saying, what do I owe you today? And we would say, oh, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Well, when you do that, you're not framing the buying criteria to be about better hearing. You're giving your services away. Not that it's about the revenue, but it's about you're devaluing what you do. And so we want to put a value, whether we charge or not is not the point. we want to put a value on everything that we do at the end of every visit. So they understand that why they're coming to you is because you're providing value to them at every visit. There's not a tool better than this service fee sheet that you're filling out. Back to the story of the HearClear, I didn't know what a HearClear was. I'd been that removed from fitting hearing aids. As Steve, what's a HearClear? And he explains it. These little white things that you slip into the ear mold, and
Like I really knew.
Yeah, patients have to come back and have them replaced. And I'm like going, what? You mean we got something that other than batteries that patients have to come back to our office? And it's in that moment in time where we began to develop this service fee sheet where, golly, we need to be doing a lot better job of, I told Steve at the moment, I said, opportunities like this, they only come up once in a lifetime. And so we developed this form, this sheet, if you will, to be an outcome sheet at the end of every service visit. So you're framing up to the patient, this is what we've done, and this is the value. And again, whether you charge for it or not is a whole nother subject. One of the many benefits of this tool is it does usher the patient into a service plan. I mean, instead of paying for all these services, what you ought to do is sign up for our service plan, and it's a much better value. And again, what we're doing here is ultimately the objective is we're locking the patients in to be active customers for life, so that we're not losing our patients. They keep coming back to us each time we have an opportunity to get them the best hearing that we possibly can.
Yeah, it's using service fees as a retention tool. That's pretty novel. I'll ask Sarah if we've had any questions, and then I'll ask Phil, do you have anything to add on these reports, or really how to go about putting them into play?
I would say that just kind of go on what Randy was talking about with the service fee sheet. I've found it to be the most powerful education piece that we have for our patients. Understanding that at the end of the day, we've got to answer a question that our patients have, and that is, why do you cost more than Costco? Why do you cost more than a direct to consumer? And we've got to educate them over the course of years. And this service fee sheet does that beautifully. When we tell them we tested your hearing today, and the value of just that test is $175, it starts to speak to why we charge more upfront than you would get somewhere that doesn't provide that level of service. And what's fun about it is our patients believe us. Sometimes it's hard to get our clinicians to believe that the work they're doing is worth the money. But when you ask the patient, does that seem fair to you? They're like, oh my gosh, of course. And so we're trying to combat the bias that's out there that hearing aids cost $8,000. Well, they don't. The work we do with our hands is half of that. And so let me show that to you. And so by the time you get a few years into ownership and they've received this service fee sheet a few times, they're educated. They're on our side. They believe in better hearing.
Well, Sarah, I have not heard word from you. I'll ask, have there been any questions in the chat?
No, Steve, no questions in the chat.
Okay, then we're going to land this plane because we just have a few more minutes left in everybody's hour that they've given to us.
Steve, can I just say one thing, just picking up on something Phil just said a
No.
while ago?
Just kidding. Yes, of course.
The whole idea of telling the patient the truth is such a good it's such a good place to land on with your clinical teams. We're talking about being objective, and we're talking about being, first and foremost, let's tell the truth to ourselves. And I'm just going to put it out there. We're not as good at creating opportunities in service visits as we think we are. And getting to a point where you just kind of admit to yourself, I can be better. I do not tend to tell my patients the truth. I mask the truth. I filter things out, because I don't want to be rejected or I want to protect their wallet when that's not my job, kind of thing. And so just getting to a point where everybody puts their hand in the middle and admits, I don't always have the courage that I need to have with my patients. I need to be better at just telling them the truth and letting them decide. It's the pressure's not on me to decide. It's up to them. I think what was Phil saying, it's like when they leave, either I've provided them the best or they know I haven't and they've decided not to, kind of thing. And having that be the test for every patient visit, I think is so profound what Phil is talking about there.
That's a wonderful. Phil, did you have something to add?
No.
Okay. That's a wonderful thought to end on. I can jump back to the original slide, which is the secret to the hearing aid business, and the original question of what is the secret to the hearing aid business. I think it can be summarized in the way that Randy said from the expo stage many years ago. The secret to the hearing aid business is framing the buying criteria around better hearing. If better hearing is the agenda, how do you put processes into place? My wife has often used the phrase, how do you create success traps for yourself and for your clinicians? Because once you start managing a lot of people, it gets really difficult to manage people. So what you want to do is manage a process that you can objectively measure so that you can go and decide where you want to spend your time and energy and resources in training people that are trainable and vital to the success of your patients' better hearing and therefore vital to the success of your business. Before we close, I want to throw this out there to anybody that would like, if you reach out to me and you give us administrative access to your patient management system, we'll sign an NDA. We're not trying to get anybody's information, but we will provide for you at no charge this workflow and an active customer report. We'll take a deep dive on your database and what's going on in your business. And if nothing else, just have a conversation with you about how, what kind of actions, if we were to work with you or if we were to own this business, what actions would we start thinking about taking? And we would have that conversation with you. If for no other reason than we really like having that conversation and no strings attached, but we'd sure like to see if there's people out there that think like us and agree that these are good ideas and work together to transform your business. We exist to help our customers thrive and have fun. And having processes in place where you can bring your staff along for the ride really makes it a lot easier. So I want to land this plane and say thank you, Randy. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Sarah, we can't see your face and your microphone's out, but you heard these cats every month and you put the work in and your contribution is so appreciated. And I see some friends here. I see you, Sal. I see you, Ron. I appreciate you guys tuning in again. Jim, I saw you a little while ago, but I want everybody to have a wonderful weekend and go help people hear better. Thanks.